Hey, it's Soul, and I'm looking at myself right now. It definitely doesn't look very much like me, but I assure you it's definitely me. I'm back with another video, and today I wanted to, well, kind of react a little bit more to everything that we've been learning about with the upcoming patch 9.2, End of Eternity. Earlier I put out a very fresh reaction video, immediate reactions, OMGs, things like that. But now we've been learning more and more news about what's going on, and I have a bunch of bullet points up. I have no script, and I'm just going to kind of carry on a little bit more about some of my thoughts and reactions to everything that we've been learning today, at least so far, because there's a pretty good chance that even as I'm doing this recording, there might be new information that we're learning that will absolutely infuriate me, but that's totally okay. But let's kind of get started with just kind of these prolonged reactions from me after seeing all this stuff. So the first things first, this is it. 9.2 is going to be the final major story beat of Shadowlands, and that's been backed up by numerous things, including the fact that there's going to be a new level 60 boost that I believe is active like right now. Something like that is usually active only at the end of an expansion, so we're pretty much there. A lot of folks have taken in Shadowlands and looked at it as a really controversial expansion overall for numerous reasons. And a lot of folks have been thinking to themselves, well, shucks, are they going to pull another Warlords of Draenor where they just kind of give up and pour their resources into moving towards like whatever's new, whatever the next expansion is? And for the most part, it's really easy to say yes. I'm also thinking to myself, though, and this is all headcanon, of course, that early on in the planning process of Shadowlands, they probably did have a normal schedule planned, 9.1, 9.2, 9.3. However, thanks to the pandemic and the work from home situation, it feels as if, and I might be wrong about this, it feels as if the team had to really sit down and be like, okay, dudettes, we're super gonna fall behind on stuff. Things aren't going to come out the way that we wanted to. What can or should we do? And in this case, it sounds like early on, and they wanted to hide this for a while, but early on, they decided, you know what, we're just gonna have 2 major patches, that's it. And all the things that we would have wanted to have had in a theoretical 9.2, that's going to be nixed, or it's going to be like folded into 9.2 instead of a 9.3, something like that. That's kind of what I noticed about the 9.15 patch. There were so many big quality of life changes that went into this most current patch that the thought came to me like, well, maybe that sort of stuff that would go towards the end of the expansion, they're doing it sooner because 1, they should, but 2, well, it might as well do it now rather than later. Yeah, so that's kind of the thought there. The fact that there's no 9.3 does kind of bum me out, though. We're going to be, no doubt we're missing a lot of story. There are a lot of things that we're not going to learn about the Shadowlands that we could have. Maybe they'll cram some things here and there, but I totally doubt it. So that part is definitely a disappointment, but I guess I would rather see the cadence of a 2-year expansion timeline rather than to have, 2.5 or 3 because of some principle that they must have a 3. I think that the stronger mandate for the WoW team should be to have a 2-year expansion timeline as opposed to a 3-season timeline. Does that make sense? I hope it does. So let's get to the zone, and I'm going to try and throw up some footage here and there. The zone looks of the new Zereth Mortis area, as well as the raid. It looks really cool. You think to yourself, okay, what should the beginning of everything look like? And in this case, Blizzard has this, I don't know, I guess they're trying to deliver like a certain kind of vibe when it comes to like their world creation, that they believe in, things like having a creation sort of like a forge, like, hey, here's where everything came from, as if everything came from a factory. I mean, we're seeing quite literally beta tests and alpha tests of animals and things like that. And one thought that came to mind, hey, there's no murlocs. Why are there no murlocs in Zereth Mortis? Oh, it's because Murlocs are an elevated life form, just like humanoids and everything else. But we see we see other little creatures and other such things that honestly, they look really cool. The entire vibe from it, the first impression that I had from it, it had a Bastion sort of feel. It's very bright between both like the watery area and the dry area, which I'll get to that in a little bit. But it has that certain kind of vibrance and brightness that gives, that sort of Bastion sort of feel, which I like because I guess I'm just biased towards the Kyrian and everything there, including the zone. So I do like that. The size of these zones sounds massive. And you see later in this trailer that you see like the little spider thing, and the lady who was talking about it, she's talking about the creepiness of a flying spider thing. But you see a clip of this spider flying around, for a few seconds. And, the impression that I'm getting from that is that the place is big enough to warrant flying, and that there is going to be flying in that zone. Probably not right away though, as I'm totally going to expect. And, the zone progression that I'll shortly get into, that seems to be the device that's going to probably allow for that. But who knows? Flying might be available like right away. We might be able to like just get right into it. And the content itself, it's supposed to be pretty easy to access. We're not going to have to do like the entire Covenant campaign from the 9.0 and the 9.1 in order to get into this stuff. It's probably restricted to at most get to max level, choose a Covenant, off you go. One of the controversial things that I think players are going to be slowly reacting to as we get more news on this, and right now we're kind of getting lost in our own speculation, is this cipher. I forgot what it's called, but there is going to be some sort of zone progression system that's related to translating text and interacting with the creatures and devices and other such things that are around Zereth Mortis. And people are horrified by it because they're thinking to themselves, OMG, it's another effing system, which it kind of basically is. But I see it as zone progression, which is one thing, but then I guess it's different if we needed to do like this Zereth Mortis cipher stuff in order to do raids or to do Mythic Plus and other such things. If this cipher thing, if this is zone-based progression and all the perks and powers and cool things that we can do are limited to this space inside the zone, as in, hey, it makes what we do in the zone cooler, better, faster, we get stronger, it's like Dynasty Warriors or whatever, I think that's cool. I think that's totally fine, and we can progress at our own pace and get the rewards whenever we want to. That's cool. If there's going to be something where it's like, okay, you must translate this language in order to unlock a power that is usable inside raids and dungeons and and PvP and other such things, that's a line that I'd rather not cross. It's kind of along the line, think of it like Korthia. What do you take out of Korthia necessarily that is related to most anything else? Not too much, because if you're thinking about like conduits and other such things, there are other sources for that. I don't want to be forced to go into Zereth Mortis for things, so I can raid, if that's where my priorities are. I don't want to be forced to complete things on Zereth Mortis so I can be a gladiator, or so that I can get like a decent IO score or Mythic Plus score. If there's a mount in Zereth Mortis that I want and I gotta work my tail off to get that mount, it's fine by me, because that's just cosmetics, and historically I'm very not sympathetic when it comes to wanting to get cosmetics. You want to do it, you do it. You do it at your own time, whatever. And that's just my take on it. From the looks of it though, and I'll try to pull up a screen where you see like a cipher and you see what sounds like the names of different languages and stuff. As you level up or as you power up your knowledge of these languages, then you get to activate these things, which will unlock more content, which lets you do more stuff, which gives you who knows what, anima, currency, rep, whatever. And then we can get things from that. So far, it doesn't exactly translate into your Avenger Shield hits 12 targets instead of just 5 or something like that. I'm not quite seeing that, but just like most things, we're going to have to like wait and see. There's a lot that we just don't know about. And well, we're just going to kind of get lost in our speculation for a while, aren't we? Yeah, we are. The players have been asking for it, and we're finally getting them back. We're getting back tier sets and tier set bonuses. Now, as for the look, Blizzard is adopting that whole style of, hey, we're going to make gear that is based on the raid, but in this case, they're also loosely basing it on our classes as well. And there is a bit of an iconic look to it. Demon Hunter stuff does look like Demon Hunter stuff. Paladin stuff does look like Paladin stuff. Rogue stuff just looks awesome. I dig the Rogue look. And then the rest, I'm not really looking at them off the top of my head. They look okay as well. But while I'm happy for the route, I wondered to myself, you know, once I look at it for a while, how long is it going to be until, like, you know, the shine wears off and I look at this and I'm like, you know, this looks a little bit drab. It doesn't, you know, pop as much as I would like it to. And this is largely based on the theme that it's based on. So I'm not exactly blaming the art team, you know, or, you know, the art team that's designing the armor, because they're working with what is based off of, you know, everything else, based on off the rest of this zone and this whole idea of creation. Now, I do like the look overall. It's not super gaudy. It's, you know, there are fairly clean lines and it's a clean design. It doesn't like go all over the place, but it's still a little bit over the top. But like most anything transmog, I like enjoying things in pieces. Like, you know, certain pieces of the armor set might look particularly compelling that I want to, you know, twist and move onto like something else. As for the tier bonuses, there were no samples given. It really would have been nice if they gave like a couple of samples, like throw up some stuff on screen. But if you saw the preview, you saw mostly people like the art team, the story team. They were the ones that were doing these presentations, and not like, you know, encounter design. It wasn't Ian that was up talking about, you know, those sorts of gameplay specifics. It was mostly on the presentation. Now, when it comes to getting these sorts of tier sets, there's going to be the traditional way of getting it, which is to raid, because that's where all the tier sets are originally going to come from. But there's also going to be zone content. This thing called the Forge of Creation, if I recall this correctly, that's going to help facilitate obtaining these items for people who are either on fresh alt or fresh characters, or people who do other contents, PvP, Mythic Plus. So I guess how it's going to work is that as you're progressing through this zone, so who knows, you know, so if this feels required for you, okay, I totally feel you. As you progress through the zone, you unlock this forge, and then you farm up something. You farm up some sort of currency or whatnot, and you can use this currency to convert PvP or dungeon gear into tier gear, which is, I'm a little bit mixed, because that sounds like there's lots of ways to approach this sort of system. It's like, okay, so I typically raid, but I sometimes do Mythic Plus and sometimes do PvP and get those rewards. So maybe it'd be most ideal for me to, you know, do my raid thing, but also do Mythic Plus, do raids and the currency, so that way I can have more opportunities to create more tier gear for myself. Is that how it's going to work? I'm not too sure. Now, as for whether I'm liking it so far, it's way too soon to tell. Now, I'm sure for a lot of folks out there, their first thoughts was, OMG, a currency, no. And I kind of get that, but again, you know, one, it's a bit too early to tell, and two, well, what would you rather have? Would you rather have just pure RNG? Would you rather have no recourse in order to get these sort of things? Would you rather, you know, farm different content so you can get a different sort of set bonus? It could be really anything. But I'm at least looking forward to the fact that there are going to be set bonuses. We just, again, don't know how they work. But if we're going to get, you know, that sort of old feel of, hey, we get the set bonus, it enhances our abilities in kind of unique ways, unique to all the other specs, that's cool. But this kind of slides in to the concerns that I have about tier sets as well as legendaries, because there's going to be some changes coming to legendaries as well. Notably, it's a kind of a buff, kind of a confusing thing about legendaries. We'll be able to wear two. However, one of those two has to be a Covenant specific legendary. And I think that right now that's the big red flag that people are waving around. And you know what? I guess I'll wave it too. I think that's a bit unnecessary. I don't think it's a big deal if people want to be like, hey, you know what? My play style is, yes, I want to swap between Covenants whenever I want. I don't feel like I want to be funneled into, forcing myself to be a part of a certain covenant. I just want to wear 2 non-covenant specific things, and I'm cool with that. There's no freedom for that. That part sort of sucks. Of course, no one's going to wear 2 covenant legendaries because that definitely doesn't work. But lacking that freedom, I don't see a great reason for that sort of restriction. Maybe there's like a balance thing to it. I'm sure there's a balance thing to it because you guys know me. My viewpoint, my perspective on WoW is very narrow. It's limited to pretty much one spec. So I don't quite see it. I'm sure that you folks definitely do. I'm just thinking about, I'm trying to look out for you guys though. I'm thinking to myself, yeah, just being restricted like that just kind of sucks. One other pain point that I think is a bit more debatable is with regards to the final raid that's coming out. And it's going to be an 11 boss raid. Damn, that sounds like it's gonna be a pretty long raid for, my team and their like 2 or so hour time frame, 4 hours a week, whatever. We didn't get to look at very much of it. We get a hint of, hey, there's a Dreadlord over there. And hey, we can see like a level 1 Sylvanas, like all the way there in the background, standing next to a very giant Jaina and a very giant Uther. Maybe it's a perspective thing, but it definitely looks like it definitely looks like Sylvanas, and she definitely got de-leveled somehow. The concern that's been going around, along with legendaries, is the notion that this 11 boss raid is going to be sort of split into like 2 uneven halves. So here's how it's going to work. So at first week of 9.2, it's just going to be story stuff. We're going to play through the story, get used to the zone, get used to all the changes, yada, yada, yada. We're totally used to that. The season will begin 1 week later, along with everything else, with Mythic Plus. And hey, Tazavesh, it's going to be there. It's going to be part of the Mythic Plus rotation, for like 1 season. I feel really bad for Tazavesh. Anyway, back to the raid. Week 1, we're going to get 8 of the 11 bosses available. We know that the last boss of the 8th boss is going to be Anduin Wrynn. We're going to beat him up or whatever, or kill him, I don't know. But that's it. We're just going to have the normal and heroic versions of that raid and not the mythic, and that's it. The week after, everything's going to open up. We're going to get Raid Finder Wing 1. We're going to get, for normal and heroic mode, all 11 bosses are available, and also all the mythic bosses are going to be available, all at the same time. So it's going to be kind of chaotic. The intention, Ian had said something in an interview with, I believe, Millennium, where, this was intentional for 2 reasons. One was for story. They want to be able to have, Anduin have his moment, where we save him or we beat him up or whatever. And, so we'll have like some story beats and we can kind of separate that from the rest of the raid. I mean, this is a bad example, but when we beat up Soul Render in Sanctum of Domination, like we beat him up, we got a really quick thing from Garrosh Hellscream, and like that was it. That wasn't exactly a big moment, but it's kind of a small example of what I would like to see with like some sort of like separation where we get a chance to sort of like breathe instead of just be like, all right, cool, get the loot, move on to the next boss. Where are we going? We're going to Painsmith. Yeah, it's a bit too fast. So in this case, Blizzard is trying to slow things down, or otherwise, as a lot of folks are saying, they're time gating us. But we've had this before. It's been a long time since Wrath of the Lich King, but back then, yeah, raids were totally time gated. The Trial of the Crusader, that was time gated for like 1 boss every week or so, and then you can access the next one, and then you can access the next one. Icecrown Citadel, you had entire wings. It was separated into several wings, and all of those were separated by several weeks that we had to wait through before we would, get let into like the rest of the raid. So something like this, where we just have like a 1 week delay between the 8 bosses and then the remaining 3. The reactions that I'm seeing around the internet, they seem like reactions from folks who never experienced raids, from way back then, from Wrath of the Lich King and so on and so forth. Do I think it's a big deal? No, I don't think it's a big deal. Not for my team. So I'm not. So if you guys feel bad about it, I'm not going to fight you on it. But at least for my team, I know that we're not going to be able to clear 8 bosses in the first raid week because of our schedule. Now that's just kind of how it works, for those of us who raid normal or so. I'm sure for most other folks who just blow through that stuff like easy peasy. Yeah, there's going to be a bit of awkwardness there, but it's also just 1 week. I'm sure that between now and the start, people are going to be bitching about this and bitching, and then once that second week begins, that's it. It all just goes. It'll just like magically go away. No one's gonna mention it ever again, and people are gonna forget about it, just like they forgot about how things worked back in Wrath of the Lich King. At the end of the raid, though, at the end of that second week, I guess I should say, we're gonna get the final cinematic. We're gonna get the ending. The jailer is probably gonna get beat up or jailed, or something like that. And I can already probably tell myself, and I shouldn't, but I can already tell myself that I'll be pretty disappointed by another pretty weak final boss. Now, this is different from, say, like N'Zoth, and some people will say, oh man, he was just brought up and laid low over the course of a patch, and at least the jailer got an expansion. And I don't quite see it the same way. I see N'Zoth as, this background force that's been in numerous stories and plot points and novels and other such things. Whereas with the jailer, it was more like when we started Shadowlands, all of a sudden, spotlights are put on past events that we've already like emotionally have lived through and played through, and all of a sudden we're kind of like redefining those moments as to like, oh, the jailer was behind this, and his machinations were behind that, and other such things. But I didn't quite get that connection. I don't feel like there's anything personal between my characters and the jailer. Like, we see something personal between, I guess, Sylvanas and the jailer, but really like no one else. And everyone's personal connection is just with Sylvanas, who largely has just been kind of like, the little person that's been tagging along for a while. Then she gets nuked, and then now we're dragging her small version around in the raid. So I think that ultimately, like story-wise, we're going to, be more invested into what's happening with Sylvanas. And we haven't seen a lick of Nathanos. We have no idea, like, if he's like stuck in the jailer's chest or something. I'm looking forward to the end, but it's the build-up just isn't what I would hope it to be. When in other interviews they talked about, closing the book, moving on to a new chapter. I'm glad that this book is closing, and I hope that most of the characters that we've seen up to this point, we can finally say like goodbye to. Not, maybe not because they're dead, maybe they are, maybe they're not, but mostly because we could just kind of move on to like new stuff. And that's something I'd appreciate more. So they haven't given up entirely on Torghast, but it feels like they sort of did. There was an interview where they at least mentioned more difficult Torghast, harder stuff. Nothing on Twisting Corridors that I saw, but this was from a translation, so I can't really rely on it, and I'm hoping that we're going to learn more later on. Unfortunately, Torghast, now that we're seeing, now that we're getting to 9.2 and we're going to be exiting the Shadowlands soon, it seems like it's been kind of like forgotten about, which I'm really disappointed over, because I was really, really excited at first. You guys know I was talking about it like a lot during the announcement and the alpha and the beta up until, things went live. But there is supposed to be more stuff that will let us get, I guess, more mounts and cosmetics and other such things. My hope is that, there was so much potential for it, and I think that it's something that they can let follow us to new expansions if they wanted it to. And hopefully it'll be something better than what they did with Island Expeditions. They just where they kind of like left it for a little while and then they brought it back. I'm hoping that it becomes sort of a mainstay as just kind of a dump, just let it be a playground for people to screw around with, level up, get random cosmetics and things like that, to just give people like some side content to do. But Torghast isn't supposed to be required to power up our legendaries, our current legendaries, into something new. I don't think they talked about But from the sounds of it, from the sounds of it, the zone content is going to provide what we need in order to upgrade these things to whatever the new level is. What I'm hoping though is that it can be an either or thing, not just like one or the other. And by that I mean, if we're gonna power up our legendaries beyond 262, I think Torghast should be an option. And Zereth Mortis should be like an additional option. I don't want to feel like I have to do Zereth Mortis stuff, or that I have to, let's say, power up and get all these translation glyph things done in order to access higher level legendaries. That would be one of those things that I'd be like, I don't know, Blizzard. I don't think you should be doing it that way. I think we should have a little bit more flexibility there. And there were a number of things that they didn't really talk too much about. There's this whole dance sort of thing where we had a really brief clip of something going on. I don't know if it's like a DDR thing, but it sounds ridiculous and it sounds like a lot of fun. But it's also something that's linked to the Darkmoon Fair, which is only once a month. So, take that as it is. But once a month, that's not the end of the world. There was also this interesting approach that they want to try with a new PvP brawl. Now, it's just a brawl, which means it's kind of in their version of like a test bed to see what works in case they want to, make it a mainline thing. Although, now that I think about it, I think none of the brawls have turned into like full-on events. It's just been, added as part of the rotation. But anyway, solo queue seems like it's going to be added into PvP brawls, and here's how it's going to work. You're going to queue up by yourself, obviously, and you're going to do a series of what sounds like 10 3v3 matches. And in those 10 matches, it's you and all the other people that solo queue. So since it's a 3v3, there's going to be 6 players in there, and you're going to play through every possible combination of player, playing through these 10 3v3 matches. Now, the immediate concern that I have is like, that's a lot of matches. That's a lot of matches, and my hopes are that it's not just that. It's not just, okay, we're just going to do 10 matches in a row. And I believe, according to what was talked about, whoever has the highest rating, the highest win rate or whatever, they're going to be the ones that come away with like the big reward, the big prize. And I'm not sure if that's such a great idea to have only one person come out clean like that. My hopes are that the matches are shorter, as in, they'll do something to make the matches faster, either having like a time limit to it. And then they'll somehow rate a winner based on that, or there will be like some damage modifiers that or no more healing after a certain point, like dampening. It'll just be like crazy, or something like that. But 10 matches, it almost feels like the one who doesn't AFK out, or the one who doesn't like slash leave like 2 or 3 matches in because they might have had like a bad match. The last one standing is the one that's going to get the points, and that doesn't sound right. I'm hoping there's a lot more care that's put into this sort of mode. Another example would be like, if they complete a match, there should be a series of rewards that are put out right away. It's just like any old like a Call of Duty or a Battlefield match where you're stuck with the same team. Things just rotate a little bit, or people can swap or something like that. But then you just keep playing together, and then people jump in and out. And that's while that might not really be a thing, it'd be cool if that was a thing. If they could eventually develop the tech that to just have like lobbies and people just constantly were rotating in and out. So this might be a weird one. The 10 matches, that's a lot. Maybe 2v2s would be like a little bit better, because fewer matches. And well, anyway, so that's going to be it. I know that I talked quite a bit more, I think a little bit more than when I made my initial reactions, but that's me sharing. And now, of course, it's time for you to share too. Feel free to share your thoughts to some of the newer developments that have been coming out over the past couple of hours. And who knows, I might have a little bit more on that again, perhaps for the weekly. So stay tuned for that. Of course, like and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you guys for the next thing. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.